Welcome to the Adventures in Alchemy podcast, where we share tips, techniques, and true stories to support you in using the law of attraction and alchemy to create magic and live the life of your dreams. Here's your host, the founder of dailyalchemy.com, Michelle Martin Dobbins.
Hey guys, this is Michelle Martin Dobbins, and I'm here with Astra of the Shamanic Empowerment School, and I'm going to interview her for your education delight. I just want to say the reason I wanted to interview Astra, one of the main ones is that her feed on Facebook and other places is so uplifting. You can really feel her energy. She knows how to get in that happy spot and stay in the happy spot. So I'm just really excited to share her work with any of you who don't know it, and many of you probably who do know it, but you could maybe learn a little bit more about her, as I am going to do too. So welcome, Astra.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, though, I saw a Facebook Live that you did recently about your true purpose, and you don't have to share about that if you don't want to, but I loved how you kind of talked about how you learned your name.
I knew. I'm so psychic.
You knew.
They asked me about my name.
That's right. Because, I think I put a comment in there too that I have these rumblings in my life that there's it's just kind of behind the surface that there might be a different name that wants to come through, but it's not there yet. So,
and I'm sure, and I feel like that it's true for so many people who have kind of been on whatever you want to call it, spiritual journey, inner journey, that kind of thing. And those of us who really kind of do the inner work to get in touch with our soul and our true essence and that kind of thing. It's almost like it just logically follows that we start to learn, as we start to learn who we really are and learn more about our purpose, that we realize that when we were born into this lifetime, we did agree to quote unquote be that person whose name is on the birth certificate. And yet because of the path that we've chosen to follow, as we start to, like I said, kind of get deeper in touch with our core and the truth of who we are, not just me, but a lot of people I know started to realize that they have their birth certificate name that they agreed to, but they also have their soul name or their sort of true essence name the name that we've always had in any incarnation, or even when we weren't incarnated and just in spirit. And so I started to realize that and feel it probably towards the end of 2009 and the beginning of 2010. But I didn't know what the name was. I knew what name I was given.
Right.
And that the first name was Jennifer, and it's a beautiful name. But I just started to feel like, that's not my name. That's not my name. And it was like you said, that those inner rumblings and sort of just like a vague, opening of consciousness. And so then the question was, of course, well, if that's not my name, then what is my name? And so, and that kind of my second question then was, I wonder if my middle name is my name, because my middle name that I was given is Esther, after my great grandmother, and which means it's Persian for star. And I thought, well, that feels more like my name, but it's not, there was something not totally, it wasn't quite the puzzle piece that was fitting in, but it just felt more right. And so one day I was at my own shamanic teacher was, she has a little center in Chicago. I think it's called Life Force Foundation or Life Force Arts or Life Force Foundation, I think is what it is. And she was holding a sort of a psychic healing fair kind of thing where you could set up your table. And so I was participating in that. And my teacher's name is Joan, but there was another psychic named Joan who had a table at the fair. And at one point she was taking a break, and she got up and she was kind of walking around visiting everyone's tables. And she she was standing at my table, glanced down, saw my business card, and pointed at my name on the business card. And she goes, "That's not your name." And I was like, "I know."
Wow.
It was so funny. And she was so blunt, but I was like, "I know." And I said, "But I don't know what it is." And she looked at me, and I swear she goes, she says, no, I think I told her that there was sort of a glimmer of a vague thinking that it was closer to my middle name, which is Esther. And she goes, "Esther," or even before I said that, she said something with an E. And then I said that. And then she said, "No, not Esther." And she goes, "Aster?" And I was like, because it's like a type of flower, right? And I was like, "Oh, that's really pretty, but no, that's not it either." And she's like, "Okay." And she just walked away. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. And then a little while later, I saw my shamanic teacher, Joan, talking to the psychic Joan. And so I went up to both of them, and I loved the story. So I told my shamanic teacher the whole thing about the name. And we were like, was it Esther? Is it Aster? No, that's not quite it. And then my shamanic teacher looked at me, and it was like, I can't even say it because it was such a powerful experience. She looked at me and she goes, "What about Astra?" And when she said it, I swear that all of a sudden I felt huge energetic wings like growing out of my back. And I was like, "Yes, that's it." I was like, whoa. So it was just, that was extremely energetically powerful. But the whole journey leading up to it took a while. So, but that was the culmination of it. And that was so cool and exciting and funny that Esther, which was my given middle name, means star. And of course, Astra means star or of the stars or from the stars. And so it's all the star stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I think that feels like I'm on the right path. And I said, and I was kidding with my mom at some point later. And I said, "So the middle name you gave me actually means the same thing as my soul name. So somehow or another." And she goes, "I knew." It was really funny.
That's super cool.
So that's the story.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like an amazing journey and experience.
Yes. And it's funny when people I've known forever, when they call me my given name, I have no sense of attachment to it. I mean, I still answer to it because you can't make everyone suddenly change and call you. I mean, I can try, but I'm not the type who, like, I just kind of have a sense of neutrality about it because I'm not the type who enjoys getting enraged about anything. So it just doesn't really matter enough to me. It's like, I know who I am and I know what my name is, and people can call me Ralph if they want to. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's just funny. Although my BFF since kindergarten, she immediately switched to Astra. She's like, "Of course your name is Astra. It's always been Astra." It's like we have this psychic connection. Yeah. It was really funny, and it was the easiest for her out of anyone I know. So it was like, alrighty.
That's very cool. So we just brought up shamanism just a little bit because you were talking about your teacher, but I guess, like, what is the spiritual path that you have followed and how you got started into?
Well, so the truth, and I mean, if I really go way back and understand the full picture of why it's just so natural that I'm a shaman, is including this lifetime, I've had 5 different lifetimes as a shaman. And even though that's true, I didn't necessarily, when you're born and you're growing up, you don't necessarily think to yourself, "I'm a shaman," I knew that I was psychic. I knew that I had a deep connection to animals and nature. And, I knew that sitting on earth felt really healing or on the earth, I should say. Sitting on earth doesn't always feel healing. Sitting on the grass and flowers. The same friend I mentioned who knew I was Astra, she and I actually met when we were 5 years old by accidentally bumping heads in kindergarten.
Wow.
And then we were sitting in the school office with ice packs on our heads because we bumped our heads really hard. And so she looked at me, and we're in the office. She goes, "So what sign are you?" And we're 5. I said, "I'm a Gemini. How about you?" She goes, "Oh my God, I'm a Gemini too. What's your birthday? What's your birthday?" And I go, "My mom's an Aries." And she goes, "My mom's an Aries." And it was like, So ever since then, she and I had a total psychic connection. We would even do mirror movements at the same time. Like we'd look towards each other and like do the same thing.
The Gemini twins.
It's really so I've always been very aware of magic, of, having magical experiences, and that life is pretty much very magical, and so that's the beginning essence of my knowingness of these types of things, from the time I was little. And then my mom was my parents were our hippies, whatever. Astra, and my mom was very into holistic medicine, and she went to see a homeopathic doctor at some point when I was like 6 years old, and I think, or 7 maybe, but and so she had a little home kit of remedies, like the little whatever they're called, little pilly, the little white things. Yeah. And different remedies, and so I would get earaches, I would get a cold or whatever, and she would find the right remedy and give me the remedy, and like I would heal up pretty much within a day. And I thought, I like this, this, and of course there's no side effects. It's safe. Yeah. If it's the wrong remedy, it won't do anything, and blah, blah, blah. So little by little over time, I learned about things like natural medicine, and just always have been very intuitive, very psychic. And then fast forward, I was 24, I think. Yeah. So it was like the summer of 1994. And I had gone through kind of a really big shift in my life. I broke up with a boyfriend that I'd been with for 3.5 years, because I just started to sense that as much as I loved him and whatever, we were also really young, and it just didn't quite feel right anymore. I really don't like hurting people. So it almost like hurt me even more, because I felt so bad. So I was pretty depressed and pretty sad, but at the same time, kind of like awakening, more and more. And actually as early as 1993, I had gone to, and we were in grad school, and there was this little, like a little mom and pop health food store kind of thing. And I think I went there to get like organic peanut butter or something like that. And I told them, because they were the sweetest people, and they asked how I was doing. And I told them the truth. I said, I feel really weird. I don't feel like myself. I feel like I'm in like a gray fog, and I just feel strange. This was even before the breakup, but I think something, I knew it was coming, or and they said, have you ever heard of the Bach flower remedies? And I said, no, that sounds cool. And so they had like a little questionnaire, like the Bach, which remedy is right for you. And so I took the questionnaire, and I found this one of the remedies said, this is for you if you suddenly feel like a black cloud has descended upon you and you're depressed for no known reason. And I was like, oh my God, Wow. And so and that remedy was mustard, or the mustard flower. And so I said, well, yeah, I want to try this, because boy, that describes exactly what I'm going through. And like, I literally felt better within 24 to 48 hours. I was like, wow. Oh, it's gone, And so, and again, with flower essences, I love them because there's no side effect. They're very gentle. You can even take them if you're on other Western medicine, whatever, that kind of thing. And they're very, as gentle as they are, they're also very powerful, because they're working on an energetic level. So that kind of changes everything. And so I became totally addicted to flower essences, in a good way, the good addiction. And I started to realize that not only could I choose them for myself, but I intuitively knew which ones were right for like other people, for like, people close to me. And I started helping them with flower essences. Fast forward years later, I actually became a certified flower essence practitioner, because I was like, what? Of course I have to be that, Yeah. So that was the flower essences really actually started to help me become more conscious of, I've always known I'm psychic. I know I saw a ghost, this, that, and the other thing, but it started to sort of bring it all together. And I started to go, I function a little differently than a lot of the people I know, And and even though it's normal to me, it's special, it's a unique way of being. And so that summer when I was 24, after the breakup, it was a kind of a combination of a few different things. I was an art minor in school, and so I had all my art supplies, and I started doing, every day I started drawing a self-portrait, totally different colors, different styles, different, but there was something really therapeutic about just keeping on delving more and more into my inner awareness. And so it was like art therapy. And that summer also, I started to go to drum circles all the time because they happen to have a lot of them near where I lived. And the other thing, and this was really funny, a friend of mine stopped by one afternoon at the apartment where I was living, and he goes, "Hey, I borrowed this from my sister." He had something in his hand. He goes, "I think you would really dig this." And so we went in the living room, and I sat down, and it was like a box with a deck of cards in it. And it was the animal medicine cards with all the different totem animals.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, totally. Like, and even though I didn't necessarily, I hadn't studied that, but yet as I was reading through everything, I was like, oh, of course that means that. Of course that animal is good for healing this thing. And it just, and I kind of memorized them like within a few days. And he's like, "Well, you're just borrowing them because I have to return them to my sister. But I just knew you had to see." It was so strange, like just out of the blue, just someone. I don't think I've ever even talked about that stuff with him. And he just brings me the medicine cards, and I was like, okay. So it was like the drumming and the flower essences and the totem animals and the, and the art therapy, and it was, and plus I was singing in a band at the time, so singing is very healing too, and. So yeah, it all started to kind of come together when I was about 24, which was 24 years ago. Wow, because I just turned 48. So
we're almost the same age. I turned 48 next month.
Oh wow! I think maybe we knew that, but I don't think I realized we were exactly the same year. But yeah, so that's the kind of basic answer to the question, and then over time, I think it was within a couple years after that, I moved back home, and my mom said, this friend of hers lived next door to an energy healer. And I was like, "What's an energy healer?" And she goes, "I don't know, but doesn't it sound like something you want to learn about?" I was like, "Yeah." So I actually went to go get an energy healing session with this woman, and she was like the cutest. She was like, the laughing Buddha statue, and so happy and so joyous. And she reminded me of that. And she was always laughing, and her laughter was like little fairies like rolling around my body. And I was like, oh, I just love her. And she was as she was working in my energy field, I was like laying on kind of a massage table kind of thing. And she was standing right above my head, and she goes, "Archangel Raphael is one of your spirit guides." And I was like, "Oh, that makes sense because Gabriel's one of my spirit guides." She's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah. How did I know that?" And I realized, like, I think I knew that in high school, just, out of the blue. I just knew. I was like, "Oh, Gabriel. Hey, Gabriel." And so I was like, that makes sense. And then she was talking about the Egyptian sun god and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And blah, blah, blah. And while I was getting the energy work done, I had a past life vision memory, and I was talking about it. And at the end of the session, she goes, "You're a healer." And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I said, "So what do I do about it?" She goes, "Well," "I'm teaching a certification course pretty soon. You could take the course and get certified." And I was like, okay. So it's just these things, and then through her, I met a flower essence practitioner, and he also did sound healing with little tuning forks and stuff. So it was just sort of like, over time and over the decades, sort of slowly one thing led to another, And then eventually I was working at it wasn't a health food store, but sort of a health and wellness store. And the owner of the shop was a flower essence practitioner. And so the store carried not only the Bach flower remedies, but like about a dozen other companies of, flower essence companies and all their remedies. So I was like, whoa, and I would, like at off moments or when we weren't too busy, I would be just like studying every single flower essence and what it was for. And it was while I worked there that I ended up taking a certification course in flower essences. And I was there, I think about 3 years or so. And then I started working at a sort of vibrational wellness spa type place in Chicago briefly. The vibe there, ironically, was not, it was like a little weird, but all the people that worked there were great. And I became friends with almost all of them. And I left pretty shortly after I started, and one by one, they all left too, because they were like, oh, we can leave? Oh, okay, that's good. I was like, come on, guys. But interestingly enough, there, I was actually hired to be the flower essence expert, in addition to kind of running the shop that was attached to the healing and reading place and whatever. But, yeah, so, but it was right before I left the other health store, and as I was also working at the new place, I had discovered something in my head kept saying, you need to learn more about drumming and drum circles and, and what shamans do. And I was like, okay. So I think the internet was, you could Google stuff by then. So it was, yeah, so I think I Googled like shaman Chicago or shamanic drum circle Chicago or something like that. And the website that popped up was the website of the woman who then became my shamanic teacher. And I saw that she had shamanic training. Like, I think we met once a week over the course of like 4 months or something. And there were all these different, school was a long time ago. I'm trying to think of what are those called? Like different sections of shamanism that we studied. And I know that's not the word I'm looking for, but that's okay. But, and then after and she even pointed out that you could take the training. It didn't necessarily mean you were a shaman. It could be just someone interested in shamanism, but who doesn't identify as a shaman themselves.
Right.
Because people get a little weird about that too. Like, how can you be a shaman if you weren't born in this part of the world and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, actually, there's shamans in every part of the world from the beginning of the history of time. So I'm not going to get caught up in those little,
Right.
And still I kind of had inner dialogues with myself, like, am I allowed to call myself a shaman? And my soul was like, well, yes. And I was like, are you sure? Is it really okay? Am I going to offend people? It doesn't matter. You are a shaman. So why not say you're a shaman? Well, okay. And I was just like, but eventually I was like, well, it is what I am. So saying that I'm not would be a lie. And that goes against everything that I stand for. So it took me a while, but I got there. And after the shamanic training, there was like and again, I can't think of the word, but something where it was more experiential, hands-on, where you took on clients as part of your study. And so I went on to do that as well. So just so that I could have my teacher supervising me while I was starting to give my sessions and kind of get grounded in it more. Because I was already doing flower essence sessions, and I was already adding in like energy work and energy reading to those sessions. So using all the shamanic tools in the tool belt just kind of felt like a natural progression. And then it helped me realize that everything I am and everything I've always done falls under the umbrella of shamanism, because it's all about working on a soul level and being in your power and, working with spirit guides, working with the elements, being closely connected with animals, using the animal totem energy for healing, and et cetera, et cetera. I could go on because there's a lot more, but that's the basic. Yeah. That's the gist.
Very cool. I love how like the universe just kept like giving you that next level, like, here you go.
Plopping it in my lap. Yeah, exactly.
I think though, a lot of times if you're like a person who's kind of in flow and, already expressing on the level that your soul self, then it makes it easier. I don't know.
Yeah. It does. And it really, yeah. And in my, I can't speak, for anyone else, but in my case, it really did make sense that it's a shaman's journey that I've been on, because, and this is part of the story that I just haven't really talked about yet right now here today, but But as I grew up, I think a lot of sensitive messenger, shaman, healer type people have had this experience. We're very sensitive and very spongy, like our energy,
Yeah.
and we want to help everyone feel better. So as you go on in your life and like maybe a loved one feels sad or angry or they're sick or they're upset about something, you're like, oh, don't feel bad. And you kind of this is what happened to me. I would not consciously and not on purpose to hurt myself, but I would unconsciously and subconsciously take on their energy baggage, so that it was like my own soul was kind of dangling on a string like a balloon going, I have nowhere to live, and I would, like everyone else was living in my body. And I was like, gee, and I would get sick. I'd get sick with something different every month. I had chronic illnesses for years. And my soul was going, I wonder why I'm always sick. Why are we always sick? And so the whole healing inner journey that I've been on really helped me uncover and realize that, wow, this thing that I've always felt, or this habit that I was always in, or the belief that I always had, none of it was ever mine. And that was part of clearing the way to becoming Astra, or to realize that I could give myself permission to be who I really was. And the uncovering and the untwisting and the removal, the extraction or the exorcism of like everything and everyone that was in me that wasn't me, is actually the whole journey of that is what ended up showing me what my soul purpose is, which is empowerment and supporting my tribe, who are the messengers. That's the name that came to me for them. And what are messengers? Well, it's like spiritual teachers, wisdom leaders, healers, coaches that work on more of the level of soul and vibrational level and energy level. And those of us who are here on purpose to learn our purpose and share our message, our truth with our tribes. And so these are I used to call them soulpreneurs or spiritual entrepreneurs. Yeah. And we are that is what we are. But messenger is very accurate, and it very much holds everyone in that column, that thing, that I think of. There's a word for that I'm trying to.
Yeah, I get it. I feel like the word messenger is a little bit more to me powerful than like soulpreneur. Like it's like yeah, I don't know how to phrase it either, but there's like an energy of the word of like, that's what they're here to do, is to share what they know. And yeah.
And if you think, well, I'm getting goosebumps even just thinking of some of the powerful messengers in the past, but the one that came to mind is Joan of Arc. Like you can't get much more powerful than that. And the fact that, how persecuted she was to the point of, not being alive anymore. And I think, and the messenger tribe also, we have also had those past life experiences too. So it's almost like we've always come back to earth to share our message. And it feels like it's finally in this lifetime is the lifetime that we're actually safe, that it's actually safe to do that. But it doesn't always feel safe. It feels really scary.
Yeah. I get that, because I have a lot of times, and I've done some past life stuff, and they're like, you have to let go of like what happened then, even though like on a conscious level, but your subconscious mind like clicks in when you're starting to do like give your soul message. You're like, I don't know if you really want to do that or not. Right. So it creates this, push-pull kind of thing. And I wanted to say, like, that's something that you've really helped me, and you probably don't even know, with your Facebook page, because I used to keep things very separate and like for a safety purposes almost. Like I had a business page where I put my messenger stuff, and my personal page was like
regular
stuff like, hi, I'm a normal person. And then right. And I noticed like you just really, really share from the heart. You are one that really popped up to me. There are a few others too, but like, cause I'm like looking and I'm like, I feel the truth in that. And then I'm thinking like, if I put something like that on my personal regular person page, people are going to freak out. Like, what is my family going to think? What are these people going to think? And then I finally just had to be like, you know what? I am who I am. And it doesn't matter if this person, how they know me. If I am putting on a fake persona, then they don't know me at all anyway. So just, let all my weird message out and be who I am. And yeah, so I want to thank you for that, because I feel like you were a big role model for me stepping into that, because you do it in such a lovely way. And I really
Do you want to know a
it.
secret?
Yeah. Everybody gets a secret.
Every time I do put my well, and this is almost every day because you see it, but almost every time, and it's only now finally starting to shift a little bit, but almost every time that I do put my true messages and my soul messages on my personal page, and I'm usually working at night, so I usually do that stuff at night. Almost always I wake up the next day feeling like I'm going to be punished. And it's scary, I'm like, I'm not going to stop doing it, and I will shift this, because that's what I'm here. I'm not only here to do that for myself, but that is what I'm here to support my tribe with. Right. And so I'm not going to stop putting my messages, even if I feel like I've been kicked in the stomach the next day, because that's the physical feeling that I get. Yes,
I know. Like sometimes I'll get this nausea of, did I really post that? Did I do that? And then I'm like, well, the sky didn't fall, so it's all good. But it's definitely a process, because even as you go to sharing deeper levels of your truth out there in the world, it still brings up that thing. But I'm like you, I'm like, it's time for people who are messengers to shift that and share. And,
totally. But yeah.
So
I feel like you can do a little energy clearing after that one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I need a drink of water, but you may need one too.
I've been drinking coffee, which is making me spazzy. Sorry.
Well,
I have water too, so I think
that's perfectly cool. So you've kind of brought up a little bit that you mostly work with the people who are messengers.
Yeah.
So as far as the shamanic work that you do, what types of things do you do? Do you only work with people who are messengers, or is that just your most calling?
It's my true calling. And I think, I've had people that have been my shamanic healing clients for years, and every once in a while they're like, can I have a session? And it's not like I'll be like, no, I will not help you. But the truth of the matter is, even if they're not working as messengers, most of them are messengers, even if they haven't come out of the messenger closet yet. Sorry guys, if anyone knows who you are, now they know. But yeah, I think I just have always automatically attracted messengers, even when I hadn't yet done the work of what is my soul's purpose, who is my true tribe, and that. But looking back and seeing anyone who's ever come to me, really they all have been messengers. So I think it just happens naturally and automatically, even if I don't state it and talk about it. So yeah, I guess that's the answer. So if someone were to for instance, see this interview and go, you know what, something's telling me, that I need to work with her in some way.
Yeah.
It's very likely that they're a messenger, even if they don't consciously know that, or even if they are like, well, but I work at a drugstore, it doesn't matter. If someone's attracted to me, they're a messenger. So that's just true.
Makes sense. So what kinds of things do you do to support messengers? I know you have the shamanic empowerment school.
Yes. My monthly membership group. My website is shamanicempowermentschool.com, and I used to call my membership group the Shamanic Empowerment School, and then I realized, I have other services besides that, so maybe that's a little confusing. So. And with what I do, the name shifts happen all the time anyway.
I understand that totally.
Then the membership group became the Soul Soaring Messenger Circle. And then And it's funny because I almost always have these really long names for the services I do. And so very recently, the name and the energy slightly shifted, and there was a name change as well. And now it's just called the Empowerment Circle. But it's for messengers, but that's not part of the name. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's like it's one of my favorite services that I've ever offered, because really it's sort of there's like three different pillars of empowerment that I work with my clients within the membership group. And I was downloaded with the information that these are the pillars that are actually it's almost like you can't have one without the other. And one of them is like I work with them on a business level, because I've been doing sort of intuitive spiritual business coaching for years now. And so we do all the inner workings of the business stuff, including the vibrational levels, like the visibility, like we were just talking about, and abundance, money, prosperity, manifesting, tribe attraction. It's almost like we have to work on all of it, because it's all part of the same, ball of magic that is like a spiritual business. So there's that. And so there's a soul purpose, an earth purpose, and then a life purpose, which is a combination of the soul and the earth purposes. And so my soul purpose is supporting my messenger tribe in coming out and being successful and not being too frightened anymore, and success, basically soul-centered success. And, and so that's my soul purpose. And then the earth purpose is something that kind of over your lifetime or over, your experiences in this journey, in this lifetime, you can start divining your earth purposes, because you start you're experiencing them. So you kind of start understanding them. And so one of them I've known for a pretty long time is working with animals. I'm an animal healer and an animal communicator as well. And the funny thing about messengers is that we almost all have animals. And so I've started actually bringing my animal healing into the membership group, so that, could somebody actually just go on my website and just order a healing for their animal, like a la carte? Yes, that's absolutely, you can do that. But very recently I started to go, the animal services, it's an important part of being a messenger, is caring for our animals, because is that one of your animals?
Yeah, they're doing their thing in the background.
It's funny. My dog was just like kind of crying in the other room too. She wants to be with me, but it's too crazy. So she'll jump all over me and jump all over my head. But so I've started to bring that in, because part of being a grounded, centered messenger is to know that our animals are happy and supported and as happy and comfortable as possible, because they're here to be healers for us. And so it's like a two-way street. They can't be their full healer and teacher self if they're feeling all wacky and whatever. We just had a cat who had to have 9 teeth removed. And so it was like, man, because he had stopped eating dry food and was just doing all this weird, like, licking stuff. And I thought, I feel so uneasy because he feels uneasy. So I was distracted. I couldn't focus on the work. And so it's just so true. And once we got everything fixed and he's more on the healing path, now I'm like breathing a sigh of relief. And it's like, if our animals feel well, they're here to help us feel well. So when they feel well, we feel better too. So that's part of the monthly membership circle as well. And then the third thing which is the other half of my earth purpose, is that I am a medical intuitive. And except that title, like Louise Hay and Carolyn Mace and all those people, and they called themselves that, and it's fine. It's fine. What came to me though, because words and names and titles they feel very important to me, is rather than medical, is whole health intuitive, because obviously I'm working on not just the physical, not just once someone's sick, but we work on whole health, like energy, emotional, vibrational, soul level, mind, So if I'm doing quote unquote medical intuitive work with someone, I'm working on it with their whole being. So whole health intuitive. And so I'm also bringing that in to the monthly membership group. And those are the 3 pillars. So the soul, business, success, the animal health and healing and communication, and the whole health of the member of the circle. Because again, if we're not feeling our best, then the work we're putting out there, it is not as potent. And we'll be of higher support for our tribes when we're of highest support for ourselves. And working on feeling our best at all times. So it's a lot in one membership group, but that's what it is now. And so it's kind of shifted into that, and that's sort of a start of a new era. And so it's definitely open for anyone to join, but I haven't really done a lot of marketing for it yet. So the group itself is really little and cozy right now, which is cute. But I welcome with open arms anyone who goes, oh wow, so business success for my spiritual business, health for my animals, and health for me. If that sounds good, then come on in.
It's a perfect trio.
So that's I talked about that one because it's really I'm so excited about it, because those new inspirations of adding those other pillars in there just came through. And I'm like, I always look at it as like, man, this is the exact type of membership group that I would have wanted to join, back at a certain point, like, and now I've created it. So I am in one because it's mine. I don't know.
It's perfect. Yeah.
It's exciting. but yeah, there are other services on the website, and I also have services that are not yet on the website.
If they're thinking of something, they can just reach out.
People can just ask. And if I know that I offer something that isn't yet physically on the website, then I can go, well, I do have this, and this, So yes, absolutely.
Cool. So I just wanted to ask a little bit, like, you do more shamanism and stuff, and a lot of the people who follow me and work with me are into law of attraction. So I wondered like what you thought about like the connection between the two, like the similarities and the differences. How they worked.
With shamanism, it's like I said, it's really like, working on the level of the soul for total wellness. And because the soul is the core of our being. And so if we're resonating on a high vibration from a soul level, then that radiates out into the whole rest of ourselves.
Yeah.
And law of attraction just feels like that's just a natural kind of tentacle on the octopus of shamanism, because it's like, if we're feeling great, we're going to be being in ways and acting in ways that are in alignment with our truth, and we're going to be radiating our truth on the highest level outwards. And so what we're attracting back is that which we truly desire, and that is in connection with our happiness. So it feels like it works very similarly, and maybe it's just described in different language.
Yeah. And it almost feels like it's like, I don't know if I would say necessarily easier, but when you're working on that soul level, it feels like maybe you don't have to do as much on the material level to figure out what you're calling in. Like if you get your soul in alignment where it feels good and it feels happy, then it just presents itself.
Exactly. And that's making me think of like when you were asking me before about my path, my sort of journey and path as a shaman, or becoming a shaman, or realizing I'm a shaman, and how everything kind of started presenting itself like one after another, like you were saying. Yeah, it never dawned on me before right now, but yeah, I think, just by being our true selves and flowing with that, and just doing the inner work, and that we start resonating on a level of just automatically attracting the good stuff. So yes.
Yeah. Which, I think either is okay, or a combination of both, but it's really nice to just kind of get into that happy aligned spot and see what comes up, because sometimes it's not what you would expect, but it's always perfect,
That's true. That is true. And that's also not to say that even with everything that I am doing and everything I've ever done, it's not to say that I don't have experiences that are challenging as well.
Yeah.
But the way, but the way I look at them and the way I react to them, usually, unless I'm feeling particularly irritated, but my intention and the way that I usually go about it, about taking on those challenges, is I use them as tools for growth. And okay, if I'm attracting this into my life, then I'm definitely meant to learn something from it. And there's probably something inside me. It's time to shift or tweak or energetically understand what's happening there. Especially if, I don't know why this is coming to me, but it just is. But if certain types of things, if the challenges that happen tend to be similar to each other, like the pattern of however a challenge presents itself happens in a similar way, or that one feels similar to the one that happened 2 months ago, and I start to go, okay, there's a pattern here. Why, what can I shift inside myself so that I no longer am a magnet for that? And I know a lot of people get mad about the law of attraction, are you saying it's my fault that all this bad stuff is happening? It's well, no, I wouldn't put it that way. Yeah. It's not a blame thing. It's a how much inner transformation are you willing to commit to on your journey? Because if you don't do it now, you'll be back in the next lifetime. And I would rather do it now and then see what happens in the next lifetime or the next being on some level of existence somewhere.
Yeah. For real, especially if you're at that point where you have an awareness and you know that this is coming up for a reason. So
yes, exactly. Exactly. Right. And I always say there is a reason for everything. And if this doesn't feel good, then what am I meant to learn from it? And, and I also use Ho'oponopono, which, it's the Hawaiian healing technique, and it's just 4 phrases, but it's really powerful. If something's happening that I just don't like, I just start using Ho'oponopono right away. And I love, there's 2 different versions. One is, I love you, I'm sorry, I forgive you, thank you. And some people say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. But you're talking to yourself anyway. So whether you say, I forgive you or please forgive me, you're talking to yourself, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. So whichever one feels right for you. But I'll use that in any situation. If I suddenly I go, I don't like what's happening, and I don't like how this other person is acting, and I don't like this, and I don't like, I'll start doing that right away within an hour or 2 at the most. Usually within the hour, it's completely shifted. So that's like a wormhole way to use what we're talking about. Because it's shifting yourself, but when you shift yourself, you shift the situation.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
True.
So I wanted to ask you about just some of the stories that you have. I know that you've healed yourself of a lot of things. So either some of the stuff that you've healed yourself of, or that your clients have had experiences, if you want to share.
Yeah, I'll share a couple of my own stories just because I know them in detail. I know them better than I know some of the other stories. I said, I grew up being the empathic sponge and wanting to help everyone else and taking on their stuff. So what ends up happening is, if you are not well on an energy level, which obviously I wasn't, because I was carrying other people's burdens and baggage. So if you're not well, if you're not balanced energetically, and if you don't see to healing that, and you don't keep it in check, it starts to manifest out through the other levels. And so it goes from, and this is the Shamanic Empowerment Grid is a healing tool that was created through me within the past year, and it just makes so much sense. And it's about 5 aspects of empowerment on 5 different levels. And so for this story, the levels are soul, energy, emotions, mind, and body. So in childhood, I was taking on things energetically. And so what happened from that is it started to turn into issues on all the levels that follow energy. So it turned into emotional issues and mental, and not mental imbalances like I was mentally ill, but like thought patterns that weren't helpful, belief systems, beliefs about myself, which weren't really my beliefs, and it wasn't about myself because it was other people. And then after mind, it goes to body. So it becomes physical ailments as well. And if you ever read any of like Louise Hay's stuff, she talks about physical ailments and their emotional, the emotional core behind or the emotional imbalance behind the physical ailment. So it really is true. It really just travels through all of our levels. And so, over time, like I grew up with horrible digestive issues. The doctor, when I finally went to a doctor about it, he called it IBS. I don't like to really give things titles, but this is what and I when I was old enough to get my period, I had like the worst menstrual cramps. Like I missed so much school from the time I got my period to the time I stopped being in college because of my cramps, and where I was like crouching and I couldn't move and I was crying, and I would be just like wishing I wasn't even there because that's how bad the pain was, and just absolutely horrible. And I know now, I look back and I'm like, wait, that not only stems from carrying people's stuff in this lifetime, that goes back many lifetimes of being persecuted for being like a woman with spiritual gifts and all that stuff. And shivers there. And like, okay, so the digestive, the menstrual, the I would always get, I had chronic sinusitis. So like anything itis where there was inflammation, where it was like bronchitis or sinusitis or this itis or that itis. And, and like I would be so sick, and the doctors would give me, what are those things called? Like penicillin, like
antibiotics.
I don't even know anymore because I don't take any medicine. Thank goodness. But yeah, like they would give me that, even though I'm sure most of it wasn't an infection. It was just my emotional and energetic issues manifesting physically, which is really all it ever is anyway. But so over time, and like I know you and I talked about this before, but like as I just learned more and more about energy and the different levels of empowerment, and I started to go, the reason that I get this illness all the time stems back from this thing. So if I heal this thing, then it won't blossom into that thing anymore. And it was true. So I would work on one and it was almost not even a conscious thing. It was just sort of like, as I was doing my inner work and healing all the little stems and cores of things that were unhelpful, the illnesses just stopped happening. And I went, hey, that's so cool. I don't get that thing anymore. It was like, and so, because I'm very conscious of everything, and I like to know the inner workings of every little energetic thing, I took mental note of that, and I remembered everything. And so eventually I realized that I actually have a technique and I know how to do this, and it was like, hey, cool, I could do this with my clients now. or talk, work with them, support them in this way, and have them, and then basically within the past probably year, I was having a session with someone who, ever since they were a child, had horrible chronic lower back pain. And we went through and discovered the main energetic core or reason that even started in the first place, and how it developed and how it became chronic. And he was like, whoa, and like I said, I was trying to teach you all these years. And he did like some inner dialogue with it. And I said, how are you feeling now? And he's like, well, I can move around. And that's different than it was a few minutes ago. And I was like, well, that's good news, And I said, just do this. Keep talking to it every day and you'll cure it, And we only had a couple sessions, and I don't know, I haven't written to him and said, have you been talking to your pain? Like I haven't, I'm not going to be kind of all school teachery about it, but I know that he experienced immediate relief within 5 minutes of discovering the message that the pain had for him.
That's really powerful.
So, And just one more quick story that I'm remembering from a long time ago. I used to hold these sort of healing circle, like in-person healing circles at this little place that my friend used to own, and a man would come to the circles, and I think he had come to me once or twice for an individual shamanic healing session, and he has MS, and he came in, and everyone that came to the healing circles. And my philosophy was, and how I advertised it is, you are all healers. Even if you aren't practicing as a healer, if you're reading this right now, and if you know me and you know my stuff, then you are a healer, and you can come to this healing lab. It was called Healer's Lab. And so we would go around in circles and talk about, any maybe like a issue or challenge we were experiencing and what we wanted healing for, and then everyone else would do healing on the person. So it was everyone got a chance to heal and be healed. And so he started coming to those, and he was having a lot of pain in his legs. And one of the girls in the circle, she's like, I see a lot of black smoke around your legs. And as soon as she said that, like, I probably got the shivers, the goosebumps, freaking out, I was like, whoa. And so I went over to him, and I just started draining the pain away from his legs. And at the end, his whole energy, like his face looked brighter and his eyes looked more clear. And he was like, wow, guys, that was really amazing. And what's really interesting about this is that he stopped coming. People can get really afraid of their own healing sometimes. And I think because having MS was what was known and comfortable, so it felt safe even though it wasn't helpful. And so he stopped coming, and he didn't really even talk to me anymore. Now that he knew that he could heal, like, he cut himself off. So that's an interesting, reaction that people have sometimes. But the cool part was what he experienced in that moment. Anyway.
And then if he's, sometimes it takes a while, then the fear goes away, people can.
Yeah. And I hope the best for him. He's a very sweet guy, and obviously I hope the best for everyone.
So probably just one more quick question, because I know we're coming up to about an hour, but just if you have something to suggest to somebody, like a simple practice, or just like if somebody's starting out, what would be something easy, simple that they could add to their day?
Well, the first thing that almost always comes to me is breathing. And I know it sounds funny because it's like, well, we're always breathing, but what I found about myself is that it's like, was I always breathing? Well, yes and no. It's what I realized is that my breaths were really shallow, and they weren't the deep belly breaths. They were sort of like, they would stop in my chest area. And that it's helpful enough to keep your heart beating, but it's not helpful enough to be healing for your entire being. So the deep belly breaths, there's a reason that when people are leading meditations, they always say, take a few deep cleansing breaths. It's because really, it is really cleansing. So I would say every when you wake up and you first sit up, I would stretch, because you want to get your energy flowing as well as your blood flowing. But then sit and take a couple deep belly breaths. And I would do in through the nose and then exhaling deeply through the mouth. And that's very cleansing. That it helps, because when we're sleeping, and especially when we're dreaming, we're actually working out a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we might wake up with like weird energy residue. I know I do anyway. Yeah. So when you do it really gets things circulating, and you release any of that residue or that feeling of kind of having cobwebs all over your body. So I would definitely do the deep cleansing breaths. Drink a lot of extra water, because as you go along on your spiritual journey, you are going to be experiencing really deep transformations. And water it's an energetic tool, but it physically helps to cleanse the residue as well of any old dregs of energy that are no longer helpful. Movement, dancing, walking, things that get you really grounded in your body. Mm. I would probably go online and Google, or if anyone wants to contact me, I've got a little meditation I can send I think it's called the Grounded and Empowered Meditation. And it really helps you connect to the earth and connect in with your body, so that you are the captain of your ship.
Yeah.
It really lets your body and your whole being know that you are stepping into your power, and you are here. Like, I am here. There's a reason we're all here, and it's, when we're on a spiritual journey, it can be really easy to just kind of like float around and be, always want the blissful feelings, but really to be fully empowered, you've got to be here in your body, and you've got to be here planted to the earth. So those are my tips for starting out.
Very good. Yeah. Sometimes we forget how important breathing is.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to post all of your website links and your Facebook page and for your Shamanic Empowerment School. And so if people want to find you, they can find you there. Is there anywhere else that I'm forgetting, or?
No, I think those are the two. Yeah, the shamanicempowermentschool.com and then my Facebook business page are probably the top two places. And then from there, I probably have other links to like Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and all that stuff. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I'll add it on my website too. But yeah, those are definitely the top two good ones. So.
Awesome. And I encourage everybody to follow her on Facebook because you will get a great little energy boost every time you go there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And
you're welcome. It was good to talk to you. It's been a couple years.
I know. Oh, it's so fun. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure I'll be in touch soon.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me. It's been really fun.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a joy. Yeah. Yes, the dogs.
Time to take the dogs out.
Yeah.
Would you like some help creating more magic in your life? I've got a ton of freebies and goodies for you. They're all tucked away inside my magical freebie vault. You can get free access, though. You just have to go to www.dailyalchemy.com/magical-freebie-vault. Again, that's dailyalchemy.com/magical-freebie-vault. And when you get there, you can just plug in your name and email, and you will get instant access to all kinds of goodies. There are daily and weekly manifesting planners, the How to Shift Your Vibe in 5 Minutes e-kit that has audios and a workbook. There are moon manifesting planners and daily love lists and money trackers and all kinds of goodies right there. I didn't want to make you have to go to a bunch of different pages and sites and wait for certain freebies to come out. So I just took all of my freebies and put them in one place where you could just sign up one time and download any of them that you want at any time that you needed. So you can just head on over to dailyalchemy.com/magical-freebie-vault and download them today. Have a magical day.
Thanks for listening to the Adventures in Alchemy podcast. Connect with me on thedailyalchemy.com or Facebook at facebook.com/Michelle Dobbins author. Join us next time for even more magical life tips.